Hi everybody, welcome back to Healthy Togetherness. Today we're going to be making some basic bread. What I mean by basic is it's only going to have 4 ingredients in our bread: flour, water, yeast, and salt. And the reason why we're doing that is because right now we are in the midst of a pandemic because of the COVID-19 virus. Local governments and state has asked us to stay at home, and more people are staying at home and cooking. In fact, our goddaughter has sent us a funny picture about all of these people who are getting so much practice cooking at home that now they can qualify for the television show MasterChef. I think that's just absolutely hilarious. Another reason I thought it would be a great idea to make some bread is because our local grocery stores are not as stocked as they normally are, and one of the items that's hard to come by is, at least at my local grocery store, is bread. But they do have flour. In fact, it's kind of funny that I normally buy a big 5-pound container of flour, and all they have now is just the small 2-pounders. I thought that these are kind of cute. I've never bought one this small. So we're going to be baking some bread today. Again, very basic, and it's very easy to do. So when I've baked bread in the past and other baked goods, the ingredients in the recipe books and magazines, they're usually measured in volume, which means like 1 cup of this and 1 cup of that. And I find that that's a little bit inconsistent. The results are usually inconsistent because, for example, when you have your flour is compacted, well, 1 cup of a compacted flour is actually different amount compared to 1 cup of sifted flour, and so that's actually a very big difference between the two. So I find that that's a little bit inconsistent. Other recipe books that I found use weight as a way to measure their ingredients, and I found that a lot better. And so that's what we're going to be doing today. So you are going to need a scale to measure our ingredients. They're not very expensive at the grocery stores. And let's see, I find that if the scales are set to grams as opposed to ounces, it's a little bit more accurate also. So we're going to be weighing our ingredients today, and we're going to be weighing it in grams. Right? Another thing that we're going to be using is something I found that's very helpful. I found it on the internet, and it's called the baker's ratio, and here it is on your screen. What it is the amount of ingredients based on the amount of flour that we're using. And again, this is based on weight. So whatever you decide on how much flour to use, that's going to be 100%. And then you're going to take 65% of the weight of the flour, and that's going to be how much water we're going to be using. You're going to take 2% of the amount of the weight of the flour, and that's going to be how much salt we're going to be using. And then we're going to take 1.5% of the amount of flour that we're using, and that'll be the amount of yeast we will be using. All right. Okay, and here is a display of the amount of ingredients that we're going to be using if we're going to be making bread based on 1 pound of flour. And here is the amount of ingredients we're going to be using for 2 pounds of flour, which is what we're going to be doing today. Okay, and one more a few other things. If you have a stand mixer, please go ahead and feel free to go ahead and use the stand mixer. Put all the ingredients in the bowl of the stand mixer, set it on low until it blends. Otherwise, you're going to have this cloud of flour in your kitchen. And then after everything gets mixed up well, increase the speed until the dough starts to peel away from the bowl and the bowl is coming out clean. Right? So today I'm going to be doing things by hand. We're going to be kneading the dough by hand. I just think that it's a great idea to at least once or twice knead the dough by hand. That way you get a feel for what the texture of a dough should be. You know, if it's too wet, if it's too dry, it's a great idea, I think, to at least learn that, get a feel for it once or twice before always going to a stand mixer. Right? With that in mind, what I normally would use for the house is I've got a big bowl here to mix all my ingredients in, and the bowl is big enough so that I can actually do all the kneading that I need to do inside the bowl instead of on a board. But if you don't have this, it's fine. What I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to be kneading it by hand, but I'm just going to be using a small bowl and to mix all the ingredients, and then transfer that all the dough onto a cutting board, and I'm going to do the kneading in the cutting board. All right. I think that's it. Let's go make some bread. Okay, let's measure our ingredients. Turn on our scale. Okay, it's already set to grams. 0. Okay. Alright, so we have 2 pounds of flour here. It's already said that it's already 2 pounds, but we're just going to double check, make sure. Okay, they're being more generous, so we're going to measure out 907 grams of flour. Okay. Next, we're going to measure our water. We're going to need 589, 590. Okay. Alright, there's our 590 grams of water. Now the water should be between 100 and 110 degrees Fahrenheit, and that will help to activate our yeast If it's too low, it just takes a little bit longer for the yeast to activate. If it's too hot, it could actually kill the yeast. So let's take a look. 107, 108, perfect. We'll set that aside for right now. Get back to our scale. Our yeast, we have about 13.6 grams, or 14. Okay, I'm just gonna double check. That's zeroed. 14 grams, okay. And then we're gonna need 18 grams of salt. Now this is another reason why it's, another example I should say, of why it's better to weigh your ingredients as opposed to measuring them by volume, because we're using kosher salt here, and if you measure a teaspoon of kosher salt versus a teaspoon of table salt, because the granules on a table salt are smaller, you'll actually get more salt compared to the kosher salt, which the granules are much bigger. So again, you have a little inaccuracy there. So we're going to weigh the 18 grams of salt. Whoops. It would help if I turn this on. Zero. Okay, we're at 10. 14. 18. Perfect. And we're just going to go ahead and double check. 0. 18. Perfect. Right. Okay. So here are our ingredients. I'm going to go ahead and mix our ingredients now. Okay.
after stirring with a spoon for a while, it becomes harder to stir with a spoon. So we're going to go ahead and stir with our perfectly clean hands. Just kind of get all the flour incorporated in here. Okay. Put things on our cutting board. Oh, by the way, I've put a damp cloth underneath the cutting board so that the cutting board doesn't move around as we're trying to knead our dough. Clear all of this. Okay, so there are many ways to knead a dough. Some people take it and just kind of throw it back onto the cutting board. I've seen that done. What I like is you take your dough, you fold it forward to the front. Take the heel of your palm, take the heel of your hand and just push forward, turn it, fold it this way, push, turn it, fold it again. Alright, try to get all of these here. Alright, again, pull it back, push down, turn it. Alright. One of the benefits of using the baker's ratio is that at this point if I didn't measure it properly, my dough would be sticking onto the cutting board, and I would be adding more flour just to get it to make sure it doesn't stick, and then which would usually result in having too much flour in my dough, and then the bread turns out dry. This way, I know that I've got the right amount of flour I've got the right amount of flour based on the amount of water that I've got, so I feel very confident that this dough is going to turn out perfect. And there's nothing sticking onto the cutting board. Okay, so I'm going to be kneading this dough for maybe about 10, 15, 20 minutes or so until I feel that the dough is a little bit more smooth right now. I joke around that this is, what is that movie called? I joke around that this process is like that movie, the Benjamin Bottoms movie, where the baby is born old looking, and the skin is very rough and wrinkled, and then as time goes on, the person grows up, but his skin is becoming more baby-like. And so that's what we're kind of going with this dough, is it's all craggy and not smooth, and we're going to knead this dough until the dough is actually more smooth. So I'll be back in about 10 to 20 minutes. Okay, we've kneaded our dough now for a little over 20 minutes, and I think that our gluten has developed really well. If you'll notice, this is much more smooth. The dough is much more smooth now compared to when we first started. Right? And in baking books or recipe books, the recommendation is you knead the dough until it's about as smooth as a baby's bottom. And that's a great recommendation if you have an experience with that. What about the people who never had babies? For those people, there's another test. What you do, this is a bench scraper, by the way. It's great to just be able to scrape out the dough from the cutting board or from your board without damaging the board. It's not sharp at all. Okay, so what you would do is just take a small bit of your dough and stretch it out. And the idea is, if the dough stretches enough that you can see light through it without the dough tearing, it's kneaded enough. The gluten has developed. So I don't know if you can see this through the camera, but I can see light through the dough, and it's not torn. So that's great. Right? I believe that's called the window pane test. All right. So now what we're going to do is rest our dough for the first time. This is called the proof, and what we're going to do is this is the bowl that we used originally. I just cleaned it out. If you want to, you can put a little bit of vegetable oil or olive oil thinly so that the dough doesn't stick. I'm not really that concerned about it. So what you do is you take your dough and you keep folding it towards the bottom so that you have a smooth top and all the creases are at the bottom. Alright, just keep doing this. Alright, and so we're stretching the dough at the top. Okay, and our creases at the bottom, and what we're going to do is let this rise. Put the creases at the bottom of your bowl. There you go. And we're going to let this thing rise until the dough doubles. Okay. So okay, we're going to keep this in the bowl until the size of the dough has doubled in volume. We're going to keep it. We can go ahead and put a cling film on top. You can put a towel over it, but I find the cling film is just a little bit better, so that I don't have to keep lifting the towel to see if the dough has risen enough. Okay. So this is where patience comes around. I really can't tell you how long it's going to take for the dough to rise or to double in size, because that depends on a lot of different factors, mainly the environment. Right. So right now I'm doing it. It's a little bit cold right now. I'm doing this in the morning. Outside it has rained a little bit, so it's chilly outside. So it'll take a little bit longer for the yeast to cause this dough to double in size. If you're doing this during the summertime where it's warmer outside, or you're in an environment where this is warm, it'll take less time to cause this dough to double in size. But the point I'm trying to make is that however long it takes for your dough to double in size, let it double in size. All right, and we'll be back when that happens.
1 hour later.
Okay, look at that. Our dough has doubled in size. I'm very excited. It only took a little bit under an hour. Not too bad. So I'm going to go ahead and put that aside, and we're going to get our baking dish ready first. So we have a little sheet tray over here. I am going to take the time to put oil on this one so that our bread will slide on it as it expands. Just a little bit of olive oil. Okie dokie. Now we'll go ahead and set that aside. Alright, so this is the first rise of our dough. We're going to let it rise a second time, but we're going to shape it first before we do that. I'm going to have to get another cling film. Okie dokie. So the reason why I made 2 pounds of dough is I want to demonstrate, I want to show you how to make 2 types of bread. So what we're going to do first is punch this all down. Alright. We're going to weigh our dough. I'm going to do it this way. Okay, we'll go ahead and zero this out. And we'll go ahead and weigh our dough. So we have 1,478 grams, or 1.478 kilograms. So 1478 divided by 2 is going to be 739. Yeah, 739 grams. So we'll go ahead and weigh this. Take this, zero that out. Take our dough, and we'll just take our let's see how we come. 740, so we're a little bit high. So 31. 739, perfect. Alright. So this should be more or less 739 also. 737. Good enough, but take this. 738. 737, good enough. Okay. Okay. So now that we have our dough weighed evenly, we're going to go ahead and shape them. Now the first one we're going to make is just a basic roll, just like a baguette or a French bread. So we just go ahead and take it, kind of roll it out. Try to have only one place where there's a seam. Alright, so we have a seam here. We're going to try and close that. Okay, and then roll it. There we have room. I'm putting a small amount of pressure on the dough as I'm rolling it, so that it will lengthen. And also I'm kind of watching to see that the dough is even in size. So I can see it's a little bit bulging here, so I'm going to put more pressure on this side and try to roll some of that dough this way. Okay, looks fairly even. Let's go ahead and roll it, expand it a little bit more. That looks pretty good. Okay. Alright. Now we have smooth sides, and where's our seam? Looks like we rolled right there. Okay. So we're going to have the seam side down. Alright, so that's one. I'm going to share with you how to make, this is easier for me. I like this one better. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is I'm going to share with you, it's an easier way to form a dough. We're going to take this, zero this out, okay. We have 738 grams. Divide that by 4. $738 grams divided by 4. 1, 3, 4, 3, 3, 8. That's 32. 18, that's 4, 16, 20, 184.5 grams. Right, can't do halves on this scale, so 184-ish, and we'll have a little left over. Okay. Take our dough, we'll divide it in half. And then in fourths, 192, a little much. 174, 82, 85, 84, okay, so that's 1. Let's go ahead and roll that up. $74, 80, 3, 84, so here's another one. $184, okay. This should be just a little bit more than that. 186, okay, we're good, that's fine enough. Now what we're going to make is called a bowl. It's a round dough. It's easier to form. So what you do is you just take your dough and keep rolling it so that the seam is only on the bottom, just like what we did earlier. Okay. So now we have no seams at the top, all the seams at the bottom, and we'll try to pinch that closed. But basically the important part is that we have all the seam at the bottom. Okay. Again, this is, I find, much easier to do. Okay. Okay. All right. Now we're going to get some cling film, and we are this time going to add a little bit of oil to it so it doesn't stick and ruin our beautifully made bread. And we're just gonna wait until this doubles in size again. Right. We'll see you back then.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
Alright, looks like our bread is expanded. I was kind of hoping that this would kind of puff up as opposed to puff out, but that's okay. We'll make it work. It'll still be good bread. What I'm gonna do now is turn on the oven to 375 degrees, again 375 degrees Fahrenheit, and as we're doing that, what we're going to do is I've got a pan of water in here, and I'm going to put that on the lowest rack in the oven. And so what happens is, as the oven is heating, this is going to warm up and it's going to create steam inside the oven, and that's going to help with the baking of the bread. It'll help the crust to not form so quickly. So here we go. Okay, so I put the water in the lowest position possible in the oven. My next rack is going to be in the middle of the oven, and that's where this is going to go. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to cut up some slits. Okay. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to cut some slits on this, just so it looks really nice. I'm going to put a little bit of oil on paper towel. Alright, and we can just go lightly. Alright, and then we'll do the same thing on this. We're going to put a cross on top of these. Professional bakers actually have a razor blade that is more appropriate for this than a knife, but we do what we can. And then one more thing. We're going to dust the top of this with some flour. I think this is just for aesthetic reasons when it comes out of the oven, but I am not sure. But the bread looks really good when it comes out of the oven. All right, and then okay, we'll be back when it's ready to put in the oven. Okay, our bread is ready to go in the oven, but before I do that, I wanted to show you, if you didn't want to freehand the shape of the dough, you wanted to use a pan. Here's one that I have that is great. This is called a Pullman pan. It's great for making Pullman loaves. You just basically put your dough in there and let it proof a second time, and then if you wanted to have a traditional looking bread, in other words the flat sides and then the kind of a rounded top, you just let it proof in here until it's above the top of it, and then it'll make that nice shape. Or if you wanted to have a flat top, it does have a lid that you just slide. You would oil the lid first, you would slide it over, and then as it proofs, it will create that flat top for you. And then when it's done baking, you just kind of slide the lid out and it'll be flat. So this is a nice pan. Again, it's called a Pullman pan. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and put this back in the oven, or back into the oven. Right. Our oven has plenty of steam inside because of the water that we put at the bottom. Okay, I expect that the bread will be done in about 30 to 45 minutes. I'll go ahead and check it around 25 minutes to see how it's doing. All right, and we'll be back. All right, let's take a look at the bread. So here's my setup. There's the bread at the middle of the rack, and that's the pan of water that's providing some steam. All right, so the bread looks great. Let's see if it's ready. All right, there is our bread. It looks good. It got a very nice color to it. Let's check to see if it's actually ready. Hopefully it didn't stick too much. So the way you can tell if the bread is ready is, oh, hot. All right. If you tap it and it sounds hollow at the bottom, it's ready. Or if you take a thermometer, okay, and just put it towards the bottom or somewhere. It should read about 205 degrees. Okay, this bread is ready. Yeah, there we go. Okay, this bread is ready. Let's check this one out too. Okie dokie. Again. Man, why don't I wear gloves? Something. Okay, 205. I don't know if the camera can catch that. Okay, so that's good. It's ready. We're gonna let it cool down on a rack. So we have a cooling rack here. I'm going to let it cool down in a rack, and this is to prevent the bottom from becoming soggy because it still has steam coming out. And this will allow the steam to just circulate out. Okay, looks beautiful. Okay. And after it cools down, we'll give it a try. We'll be back. Yay. Okay, our bread has cooled down enough. Let's take a slice. Nice crust. Whole. Okay. Nice and fluffy. I guess I should try it without the jam first. Very nice. I like the crust on it. And the bread itself has flavor from the salt and the yeast, even without the jam. Of course, I like jam or butter. Oh, that is so nice. I like it. Yep, that is delicious. And even better, the house smells amazing. It smells of freshly baked bread. It's great. Okay, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope that you give this recipe and this technique a try. Please be safe. We're all in this together, and we will get through this. Please leave a comment in the comment section if you give this a try. And again, be safe. Thank you.